Hi, this is Autumn Payne. I'm a visual journalist and here interviewing today Stephen Walker once again to talk about mental health um, topics that we hope will be of benefit for people listening. Thank you so much for joining us again today.
You're welcome.
Yes, so it's been a little while since we've done one of these, and this is a topic that's been requested by one of our listeners, and it's the topic of boundaries. So I was hoping you could share with us your perspective of what boundaries are and why they're important for people's mental health.
Well, boundaries is kind of a little bit of a meme word in the therapy world. So, but it can mean different things. Lots of times, boundaries are a way of keeping unwanted things out or keeping wanted things in. But also, boundaries can just be a clarification of how the game is played. So, if you're playing tennis, then you have lines on the ground, and that helps you know, like, who scores and who doesn't, and there's a net. So those are boundaries, but um, they're meant to keep a ball in play, or meant to keep a relationship going. So people talk about strong boundaries and weak boundaries. Um, Sometimes with the idea that, well, strong boundaries are really good and weak boundaries aren't good, but it really depends upon the relationship and the situation.
Hmm.
So there's no way to have what I would call good boundaries without, wisdom and insight into what the situation actually is and what you want from it.
Yes. So I guess boundaries aren't necessarily always good, depending upon the context of what it is that we're talking about.
Yeah, you have to know the context,
Hmm.
so and the purpose. So usually, but in a broad sense, used therapeutically, a boundary that's important is like, well, where do I start and where do I stop? Where does my self identity dwell, and where does another person start and stop?
Hmm.
So one of the more confusing things is identity boundaries.
Oh, especially
Yeah.
between parents and child, right? That one can get
Yeah.
always confused.
Well, the um, we need. I don't know if you can totally eliminate confusion. You see, that's the thing. So, um, when we're driving on the causeway to Davis when it's foggy, um, the boundaries get blurred, right? Or maybe even kind of scary. So then hopefully people slow down,
Hmm.
have their lights on. So there's a compensation for the lack of boundaries because there's nothing you can do about it. You can't do it.
Mm.
So a lot of relationships and situations are so new that we haven't been able to establish clear boundaries, or it's foggy or something. So you have to have these other skills to kick in. You see, it's like, well, okay, I have a skill where I'm going to drive really slowly, or something like that. So um, a lot of times, and I think boundaries in a lot of ways come from recovery literature, like codependency.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Um, those kind of using that kind of language. So it's not, when a situation isn't clear. Sometimes you can't have by necessity a clear boundary and, until it clears up. But then you have to have
Hmm.
these other skills. So,
Hmm.
well, the boundaries aren't clear, so we're just going to go slow. Or,
Mm.
because just using the car metaphor, if your boundaries aren't clear with someone, you may not want to have the relationship progress on a really rapid pace, right? You want to
That
slow
makes
it down.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think about boundaries in interpersonal relationships. How, what is a good way to set a boundary with somebody in a compassionate way? Because I feel like a lot of times people don't like to be approached saying like, "I'm setting a boundary with you," right? That
Mhm.
conversation is usually not gonna go well.
Well, one way is to say, I want to, establish an open dialogue and some open space. So I want to
Mm.
establish a safe space, and then I'll
Mm.
meet you in the middle in that safe space. So it isn't like we're both talking to each other from our castle ramparts.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
we're first saying we want a nice conversation, so we're leaving our weapons and armor, um, and going out and meeting in the open field, right? That's one way.
Yeah, I like that instead of like we're creating a safe space. I like to think of
Yeah,
boundaries actually more of the safe space that it creates rather than the walls because the walls feel like you're separating yourself from somebody and even if that could be a good thing, but if you're saying no, we're actually creating something positive where we can both benefit from this safe container that we've created, then that language is a little less combative. Is that what
yeah.
I'm hearing?
Hopefully, that's where close relationships are. But
Mhm.
of course, when things are bad and you have to file a restraining order against someone, then
Oh gosh, yeah.
you do really want to say, okay, you don't come within 200 feet of the castle.
Mhm.
But I think the important thing is, you have to have a sense of the space, the context, and the goals, and then you adjust the lines and the speed and the approach based on that.
So really thinking it through. Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be, um, flexible boundary, but there definitely are hard boundaries, right? Like,
Mhm.
some people say, well, anything goes, everything's okay. And I go, well, no, child abuse isn't okay.
Right.
There's some strong, elder abuse isn't okay. These are all the things that really have very strong boundaries that way. But if you're trying to get to know someone well, then you do have to kind of meet them on open ground.
Mhm.
And the boundary would be maybe what you don't bring to the open ground. You're not bringing your weapons or your hidden agendas. You're trying to be transparent,
That
which is a
makes
form
sense.
of boundary itself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then I'd also like to talk a little bit about boundaries in relation to maybe work life boundaries. I have a lot of friends, especially in journalism, they work so hard, and um, we are talking about how to set boundaries to take care of ourselves better, you
Hmm.
know. So, what are some thoughts you may have on that?
Um,
It's a big shifting gears.
yeah.
I
So,
know. Mhm.
well, a basic boundary is, if the job or your profession isn't in line with your core value system, you're going to be, always have some level of stress.
Mhm.
So a lot of people, unfortunately, become very well, paid in certain professions, and then as they work more and more in it, their value system, what they find important, starts separating from that job or that career.
Mm.
So even though they're doing kind of the right kind of things on a surface level, like you're running and you're taking care of yourself and you're taking breaks and vacations, there's still a real value disconnect. So that becomes the hard time, whether people really need to change careers or stop doing what they're doing, and, those are hard decisions for people, and those kind of, when you get this value separation, then it's really hard to use the normal kind of, ways that people try to avoid what now, of course, is called compassion fatigue. But,
Mm.
burnout's still a really good word.
Yeah.
It gives
Yeah.
an image, right? Yeah. So that's the hard part. If I think
And
it's
I do come across that a lot too, and we work with people in nonprofits quite a bit too.
hard.
And
Yeah.
compassion fatigue is a thing, and also like just running because you've got that purpose drive, for
Mhm.
the cause that you're serving, but yet, you sometimes can be sacrificing your own well-being for that. So I've kind of been learning a little bit about automations even that you can use to
Mhm.
create boundaries. Like there's actually a service, and if someone knows this service, please type it in the comments. But there's a service that will hold your email for you till you tell them to release the email. So you can actually automate your email. So I only get email at 9 a.m. and 3 p.m.
Right, right.
So that way you're not like getting bombarded when you're trying to work all day by these emails.
I like that.
I haven't had the guts to do it,
I want to
but
sign up. I want to
you
sign
can
up for
automate your boundaries. How
that.
cool
Yeah,
is that?
that's cool.
Yeah.
I want that one. Yeah. Mm, we should talk more about boundaries because it's all about structure. You see, so
Yes.
generally, um, I'm I want to lead with structure instead of leading with um, what I call juice. But a lot of times, you know, so I want to build the bird cage before I get the bird. Where generally I'm
Mm,
meeting with people who are in the middle of emotional and mental, emotional, upheaval, but they don't have the right container, the right structure, and the structure is broken down. It's not that they shouldn't be having the feelings they're having. It's just they don't have the structure to channel them or work with them.
mhm.
Because, well, this I'm just putting an opinion, but lots of times emotions and thoughts are not self-structuring.
Okay, what does that mean? What do you mean by
Well,
that?
like, so what I mean is that we're hoping that if we just say exactly what we think and feel exactly what we feel and communicate it, that by itself creates the boundary and the structure. It's just like people go, yeah, I just tell the truth. Um,
Mhm.
but a lot of times that actually is much too broad. And it's like driving on a road that has no lines on it.
Mm, yeah.
So there are a lot of crashes with that kind of approach.
Is that way in like group meetings, there's rules sometimes? Group
Yeah,
therapy is like no talking over the person,
yeah,
allow
yeah.
them to finish
So
before responding, things like that.
yeah, I mean, I want to have the juice, but I want to have the container also.
Mhm.
Because if you ask for a glass of water and somebody just brought you some water and poured it on your head, that wouldn't be what you want.
I like that.
Yeah,
I think that's a really great place to end.
yeah.
I love that metaphor. Okay, all right. Well, thank
Okay.
you so
Yeah,
much for
right,
taking the time to talk with us again today,
all right.
and we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, we will. Thanks.
Okay,
Ciao.
bye.
Mhm.